Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I am Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. In Myanmar, 2 protesters have been killed and several others wounded after police opened fire on the anti-coup demonstrators. This comes as police continued a sweeping crackdown against the opponents of military rule for the second day. Meanwhile, the country's UN ambassador has vowed to fight back after the military fired him for urging UN action against the coup. In India, the protesting farmers are gearing up for the March 1st rally against the centre's agricultural laws in northern Uttarakhand state. Farmer leader Rakesh Takait will tour 5 states to drum up support for the ongoing agitation. The union has demanded a judiciary inquiry into the Republic Day violence, calling it a deep conspiracy against farmers. The coalition forces in Yemen say they have thwarted a ballistic missile attack by the Houthis on the Saudi capital, Riyadh. Saudi state media said the coalition also destroyed 5 explosive-laden drones heading towards southern Saudi cities. It comes a day after the Saudi coalition destroyed 4 Houthi drones. Eleven people have been killed after gunmen riding on a truck opened fire on them in Mexico's western state of Jalisco. The state prosecutor's office said a woman and a minor were wounded in the attack. No group has claimed the responsibility yet. Brazil has registered over 1,300 deaths and 60,000 coronavirus cases for the 5th consecutive day. Meanwhile, the US has authorized Johnson & Johnson's single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. Pakistan has registered over 1,100 new cases and 23 deaths during the last 24 hours, taking the toll to 12,860. Globally, the coronavirus has claimed over 2.5 million lives and infecting nearly 114 million people. And in football, RB Leipzig beat visitors Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-2 in their German Bundesliga clash. Alexander Sørloth headed in a stoppage time winner as they battled back from 2 goals down. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. In Myanmar, 2 people have been killed and several others wounded after police opened fire on demonstrators in Yangon and Davi. 4 people have so far been killed during protests since the military coup on February 1st. This comes as police continue a sweeping crackdown against the opponents of military rule for the second day. They opened fire in different parts of the main city of Yangon after stun grenades and tear gas failed to disperse crowds. Police also cracked down on a huge protest in the second city of Mandalay. Meanwhile, the country's UN ambassador has vowed to fight back after the military fired him for urging UN action against the coup. In India, the protesting farmers are gearing up for the March 1st rally against the centre's agricultural laws in northern Uttarakhand state. Farmer leader Rakesh Takait will tour 5 states to drum up support for the ongoing agitation. Addressing a rally, another leader said Narendra Modi is the prime minister of a handful of capitalists and mill owners. He added time has come to uproot the BJP government. The union has demanded a judicial inquiry into the Republic Day violence, calling it a deep conspiracy against farmers. Over 200 farmers have died during the ongoing protests on Delhi borders, including 5 who committed suicide. The coalition forces in Yemen say they have thwarted Houthis' ballistic missile attack on the Saudi capital, Riyadh. Saudi state media said the coalition also destroyed 5 explosive-laden drones heading towards southern cities. It said the debris from the missile caused damage to one house in Riyadh, but there were no casualties. A coalition statement said the drones were aimed at civilians. This comes a day after the Saudi coalition destroyed 4 Houthi drones. Pakistan has acknowledged Saudi Arabia's efforts for serving justice in the murder case of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Expressing solidarity with Riyadh, the Foreign Office said all states must respect national sovereignty and protect human rights. This comes as a U.S. intelligence report claimed that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the plan to capture or kill Khashoggi. Saudi Arabia has already rejected the report, saying the journalist's killing was a heinous crime by a rogue group. It said the U.S. intelligence report contains inaccurate information and conclusions. In Pakistan, 23 people have lost their lives to coronavirus over the past 24 hours. The virus has claimed 12,860 lives in the country. The health ministry says more than 1,100 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It added there are currently over 21,000 active cases in the country, out of which 1,994 are admitted in hospitals. Nearly 580,000 people have infected in the country and 545,000 have recovered. Brazil has reported more than 1,300 coronavirus-related deaths for the 5th straight day. Meanwhile, the country recorded 61,000 infections in the last 24 hours. The U.S. has approved Johnson & Johnson's single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. This is the 3rd vaccine authorized in the country and is 85% protective against severe illness. Washington says shipments of 20 million doses could begin as early as Monday. New Zealand's biggest city, Auckland, has entered the 2nd lockdown in a month to contain a cluster of the UK variant. The virus has claimed more than 2.5 million lives globally and infected nearly 114 million. Armenia's president has refused to back Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's bid to dismiss the army chief. Prime Minister sacked the army chief on Thursday over what he said was an attempted coup to remove him. In a statement, the president office termed Pashinyan's move unconstitutional. It said the crisis cannot be resolved by changing personnel. It added, without question, the armed forces must maintain neutrality in political matters. For his part, Pashinyan said he will again send a demand for the army chief's resignation. The premier has rejected calls for his own resignation, saying only voters can decide his future. Earlier, 5,000 opposition protesters rallied against Pashinyan outside the parliament in Yerevan. Armenia has been in turmoil since Pashinyan signed a peace deal in November, sealing a humiliating defeat to Azerbaijan. Iran has condemned U.S. airstrikes in Syria and denied responsibility for rocket attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said this in a meeting with his Iraqi counterpart Fawad Hussein in Tehran. Following the meeting, Zarif urged Baghdad to identify the perpetrators of recent attacks on American forces. In a statement, he also said the attacks were suspicious and sought to damage Iran-Iraq ties. Iranian state media said Hussein assured that Baghdad will not allow the incidents tarnish relations between the two countries. This is Hussein's 2nd trip to the Islamic Republic in less than a month. Iraq has completed final preparations for the historic visit by Pope Francis next weekend. The streets of Najaf city are being decorated with the flags of the Vatican and Iraq. The pontiff will meet Iraq's top cleric Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani in the Old City on the 6th of March. The 4-day visit will end on the 8th of March. Najaf's governor Luay al-Yassiri says authorities are arranging foolproof security.
In terms of security, big preparations are ongoing. We did more than one security meeting to discuss the visit and the streets that our guest is expected to take from the airport to the Old City.
Tunisia's biggest political party, Ennahda, has assembled a huge rally in capital Tunis over a dispute within the government. Ennahda backs Prime Minister Hichem Mechichi in a standoff with President Kais Said over a cabinet reshuffle. Protesters chanted slogans in favor of state institutions and demanded national unity. Innata's leader and Parliament Speaker Rachid Ghannouchi addressed the crowd. He said nationalists, Islamists, Democrats and communists all gathered together during the dictatorship and must unite again. The election in 2019 delivered a fragmented parliament. The ongoing dispute has played out against a backdrop of economic anxiety and disillusionment with democracy. The European Union says talks on its ties with Turkey and on the Eastern Mediterranean will take place in March. European Council President Charles Michel made the announcement after a summit of EU leaders. Michel said Turkey is a NATO member, but there have been difficulties in the relationship in recent months. He said the goal of the discussion is to take into account the latest developments and make decisions. Turkey's relationship with EU members Greece and Cyprus has deteriorated over energy rights in the Eastern Mediterranean. In Spain's city of Barcelona, more than a dozen protesters have been arrested over charges of assaulting police in fresh unrest over the jailing of a rapper. Police chased protesters after they set fire to a police van and smashed shops and banks. Authorities said firefighters were fighting multiple blazes started by the demonstrators. Earlier, around 2,000 marched through the city to call for Pablo Hassel's release. Hassel was arrested on February 16 for mocking Spain's royalty in violation of the country's gag law. The detention prompted a debate over freedom of expression and sparked protests in Barcelona and Madrid. A group of gunmen has killed 11 people in Mexico's western state of Jalisco. The state is one of the epicenters of Mexico's drug-related warfare. Authorities say the gunman came on a truck and opened fire on people. In a statement, the state's prosecutor's office said a woman and a minor were wounded in the attack. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador took office in late 2018, pledging to reduce entrenched violence. But he continues to grapple with mass killings and tens of thousands of homicides a year. In December, Jalisco's former governor, Aristoteles Sandoval, was shot dead in a restaurant in the town of Puerto Vallarta. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Sri Lanka, elephants decorated with colorful cloths, ornaments and lights paraded across the streets of the capital as the annual NAVAM PERAHERA festival is underway in Colombo.
The pageant started from the Gangaramaya temple when Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa placed the casket of the sacred relics on the caparisoned elephant. The musicians, dancers, and elephants were all gathered at the temple from where they took off on the parade route. The procession was witnessed by many locals and tourists. The event usually attracts crowds of both local and foreign visitors. However, there were fewer this year amid the coronavirus, and the parade was also shortened from the usual 3.5 kilometers route.
In Kenya, hunting and logging pose a significant risk to both fauna and flora as authorities struggle to contain the problem. But an environmental group has come up with an interesting solution, which involves electric fences. This report has the details. Kenyan group the Rhino Ark Trust has put up fences around two key areas where rainfall feeds the rivers. It is adding more fencing around a third area in Mount Kenya, where a large portion has already been constructed. A fence is encircling the canopy of the Aburu forest, which has put an end to illegal logging and charcoal burning.
It's completely done. We did about 43.3 kilometers, and it's done now. And now the work we are doing now is to maintain now the fence itself, and also to do the sensitization to the community so that they can be able to own it.
The fences help protect wildlife from hunting and trees from being chopped down, but they do not cut off local communities. Local farmers have been resettled in land adjacent to the forest, where they grow fruits like tree tomatoes. Farmers believe the trees will help ensure the rain.
We now don't depend on seasons. This time of the year you would not see anything green here. The ground would be so parched. That is one of the biggest changes that I can attest to. You can now see it's green everywhere, meaning the environment has really changed.
Rhino Art Trust estimates that its fences protect 570,000 hectares of mountain forests that are Kenya's key rain-catching areas. Kenya aims to increase its forest cover to 10% of its landmass by 2022, attaining the standard set by the UN. A big iceberg approaching the size of Greater London has broken away from the Brunt ice shelf in Antarctica. An aerial video showed the separation almost 10 years after scientists discovered the first cracks. The British Antarctic Survey compared the berg in size to the English county of Bedfordshire, measuring nearly 1,300 square kilometers. The Halley Research Station, situated on the 150-meter thick Brunt ice shelf, is not expected to be impacted. The survey said in a written statement that it is located on an area of the ice shelf still connected to the continent. Scientists say the iceberg is expected to either move away or run aground not far from the Brunt ice shelf. Giorgio Armani envisions what our style will look like post-pandemic in his Fall-Winter 2021 line. The collection was live-streamed at the virtual Milan Fashion Week. The veteran designer, affectionately called King Giorgio in his native Italy, presented creations with plenty of romantic touches. Dabs of watery hues, greens with turquoise shimmers, pale purples and soft pinks, accents of ruffles running down the collars of shirts. For men, they were geometric patchworks of velvet and wool, or brightly colored floral patterns. A big green gorilla statue standing in the middle of the runway dominated the scene. It telegraphed a message of respect for Mother Nature and its creatures. Milan Fashion Week is a virtual event this season, with designers sharing videos of their presentations on the digital platform, instead of hosting the usual buzzing catwalk shows due to COVID-19 restrictions. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.